Well, hello, lovely people. Good to see you all here today. I'm so excited to be learning and teaching with you all on this glorious Thursday. Um, been a few days. How are we doing? How's the boot camp going? How's learning? It's a lot, isn't it? Today is the final day of our learning of basic HTML. And starting tomorrow with Jess, y'all are going to be learning about semantic HTML, which I'm quite excited about. So let's talk about some housekeeping. If you're tuning in for the first time, hi, my name is Gadman. Etta, Jess, and I are running this free bootcamp in collaboration with Free Code Camp to learn all about web development. If it's your first time tuning in, don't worry. You can totally catch up. This is asynchronous. If you want to ask questions, that's what these live sessions are for, but it's all easy. So, by showing up here today, you agree to abide by our code of conduct, which you see below me here. Go to badwebsite.club/code-of-conduct. Essentially, it's to enforce a positive, constructive environment. So if you see anything out of sorts, please let us know and we'll sort it out. If you want to stay on top of the schedule, if you go to badwebsite.club/bootcamps/spring-2026, you'll find all the sessions there. And also, please join in on Discord. This is the link to the Free Code Camp Discord, discord.gg/uppercase K, uppercase V, uppercase U, lowercase m, uppercase V, uppercase X, uppercase A. I did that in one try. And if you're not able to join the sessions all the time, don't worry. Everything stays recorded here on our YouTube channel. Go to youtube.com/@badwebsiteclub. And gosh, I think that covers. Oh, Etta, you're a joy. Thank you so much for posting all of the links. Hello, buenas. Love to see folks chiming in. Yeah, let's get right into it. I would encourage all of you to please ask questions because today is the review day. So we'll be doing the last part of basic HTML as said. You know, I've never been the biggest fan of the word basic. My friend Carolyn Stransky gives this talk called, oh no, I forgot the name. Inclusive, it was something about inclusive language, essentially saying that like that word's like simple, basic, you know, basically do this, you know, it's simple as blah blah blah. It doesn't really help us as learners feel included. And oh, Eladio said fundamental is a better name, isn't it? Yeah, I think fundamental, you know, like or you know, ground, like the ground of HTML. Yeah, no, I like fundamental. I don't need to one up that. Fundamental is a great name. Because you know, if we're all basic, like I keep saying, we wouldn't need documentation, right? So I find it really helpful to think of it as more like you said, Eladio, fundamental. But see, I'm getting ahead of myself. Let's look at what we're doing today. So the homework for today was to read all of the gosh, I don't know what's with me today. All of the lessons from Free Code Camp related to links, and we're going to cover those today, as well as read the basic HTML review and take notes. You should also have completed the basic HTML quiz to test what we've learned so far. If you haven't yet, of course, that's totally fine. Ooh, Paul Summit says basic means where everyone should start. Well, then I would argue that's introductory HTML. But basic implies that it's easy when it doesn't have to be. Also kind of makes folks feel like, wait, if this is basic and I'm not getting it, this is not for me. And I don't agree. But I like that y'all are disagreeing. That's what this is for. Anyway, yes, so we'll cover links today. We'll look over the basic HTML review. And then we'll look at what we'll be starting tomorrow with semantic HTML. So let's dive right into it. As always, folks, please, oh, why am I at the bottom here? As always, folks, please, please, please ask questions. You know, even if they fall a little bit outside of the scope of this lesson, that's what we're doing this together for. Ooh, look what Matthew says. Let's say I'm playing guitar. I want to learn the basic chord. Doesn't mean that the chords are easy if I'm not used to holding my hand in that shape, especially when you get to something like an F, the F chord. And I agree. I have small hands. Like I have chunky little sausage fingers. It's hard. Fun fact, I can play the banjo. Anyway, yeah, so let's talk about links. We've already learned about the A or anchor element in the past. What we're going to be looking at in this section is the target attribute, which you might have seen before, target blank. And there's a bunch of other target attribute values that we can set, right? So if we leave it on, I did say banjo. Did I know that it originated in Africa? I did not. Fascinating. Sorry. So in the interactive editor, we can see here we've got our target set to blank. And what this does is if we click on this link here, it'll open FreeCodeCamp in a new tab, in a new browsing context. And I'm using the word browsing context, browsing context carefully here because, oh my goodness, I had no idea. Thank you for sharing that. Right, browsing context, very important because back in the day, browsers didn't have tabs. You could only use one browsing context, one viewport per window. So if you had opened a link with target blank in, I don't know, the late 90s, it would have opened a new window as opposed to a new tab because tabs didn't exist. And I believe nowadays you can set in your browser settings whether new tabs should be open in a new browser or in a new window. Let me try that again. In a new window or in a new tab. So yeah, fun fact. But that's not the only setting we have. What happens if we remove the target attribute altogether? By default, if there's no target, it's going to be set to self. So even though we didn't write a target, it's set by default to a value called self. So I'm going to try this again. Visit FreeCodeCamp. Did I lie? Oh, it should open in the same window. However, since this is being called inside an iframe, we learned about iframes the other day, it's still opening it in a new window. Let me refresh, bring us back. Oh, and Mel's asking, isn't using target blank problematic? I heard that there is an exploitation scammers and fake sites could use to make you think you'd got back to the last site when you'd gone into theirs. And that's absolutely true. I don't know if problematic is the correct term. It's risky. It's something we need. So it's something we need to keep an eye on. And what a lot of browsers will, a lot of websites will do, especially if they're trying to manipulate you into a scam, for example, is manipulate your experience to make you think you're still on the same safe site when you're not. So what would be a good reason to have target blank? If you want to open a new browsing context, it's usually because it's something you want to read on the side. For example, if you're reading a blog post and you want to have a link to some documentation. Matthew's asking, why am I not seeing these in the chat? I'm not sure. I'm sorry. They should be showing up. Unfortunately, I don't work for YouTube. Sorry, going back. So say you've got a blog post. Oh, folks are saying they're not seeing these in the chat. Well, that's odd. Is no one seeing the chat? Top chat versus live chat could be the culprit. Yeah. Oh, I like this. If you're linking to another website, but don't want to leave the current website, and that's exactly it. So if I have a blog post, right, and I want to link to some documentation or to another website, that's when I can use target blank to say, hey, go check this out, but come back here. So it's not that target blank problem is problematic per se. It's just something that you need to be aware of as a browser user, that you're going to another browsing context. But yeah, it can be tricky. Thank you, folks, for solving the chat question. But yeah, there's a bunch of other values for this target. And as said, self is the default value. That means that if I set it to, actually, let's try it out. I set this to underscore self. Ah, see? That takes us to FreeCodeCamp. I was asking, in documentation, I often see an icon besides links that go off-site. Is this something that we should use to let our users know? The should there is the issue. So yeah, you usually see the sort of like square with an arrow going out of it icon. And yes, it's a good idea to do, but I take issue with the word should, because what you're implying is that if this is a best practice. And the thing about best practices is they change every 5 minutes, like just like we come up with a new JavaScript framework, or like people are like, oh, now we do this, so yes, it's a good idea to do it because it gives that extra indication, especially if you use alt text, which I'm assuming you're doing. But it could change. It could change in a few years. Let me put it this way. It doesn't hurt to put it in, but no one's going to get upset if you don't. It's always about making the experience or the user experience better. So you can totally put it in, but as I said, it's not a requirement. And how do I say this? Yeah, the commonly held opinion that they have to be in every outbound link could change. Matthew's asking, how do I put the little arrow icon to let users know that it will open in a new window? That's a great question because, again, there's no built-in browser way to do this. What a lot of people use is something called an icon font, right? You know how people get like, I don't know, social media logos, or the share icon, or gosh, what else is there? Do we have it here? Yeah, like this icon of the world, or where else could we see some icons? Where could we see some icons? Do we have some here? Could we use SVG? We could totally use SVG. I love that. Great opinion. Matthew says, Font Awesome. Font Awesome is a great example of something we've been using as developers for font icons. Yeah. When working with external links, one can decide where this link will be opened once your user clicks it. There's an interesting and important vulnerability surrounding it. This is because using it, I think your comment might have gotten cut off. Dan Marino, I'm excited to see. And yeah, about SVGs, Terrence showed us how to use SVGs yesterday. Thank you, Eda. So, right, back to links. So target self will open it in that same context, but as we know, there's more than one. We've got blank, which we saw opens a new tab. Then we've got parent. Now, parent is a bit weird to think because there's no actual lineage involved here, right? But this iframe is inside this FreeCodeCamp site. So let's try underscore parent here real quick and see what happens. Nothing? Goodness. So probably it's trying to navigate it outside this iframe, which is this iframe here. Interesting. Which opens the link in the parent of the current context. For example, if your website has an iframe, a parent value in that iframe would open in your website's tab or window. Interesting. Just going to try one more time. Right. So usually the iframe's parent would be this FreeCodeCamp window, but probably some JavaScript stuff is preventing that from happening. So let's open it in Code Sandbox. Thank you, Etta, for the suggestion. Oh, no, I need to sign in. No, I don't want to do that. Sorry, folks. You're just going to have to take my word for it. Parent should open it right directly outside of the iframe. Nevertheless, let's look at top. So given that an iframe can have a parent, and that parent could have a parent in and of itself, top just says, oh gosh, just open it in the most outside browsing context. So if I try that, oh wow, this really doesn't work, huh? Let me try one more time, underscore top. Okay, this demo really doesn't work on FreeCodeCamp. I'm sorry, everybody. Ooh, Etta just gave me a link to htmleditor.gitlab.io. Let's give that a try. Ooh, I like this. Okay, I'm going to make it bigger in a sec, everybody. So, Can everybody see this? I hope the size is okay. Now, let's try that one more time. I'm feeling good about this one. So, where is my body? Copy that link in there. So target is underscore parent. If I visit FreeCodeCamp, takes us to FreeCodeCamp. Nice, nice. This works. And top should also be that parent. So takes us to FreeCodeCamp. Still good. Let's try underscore self, which opens it here. Refuse to connect. Cool. No idea why, but that's fine. And the last one was, what was it? Oh yeah, underscore blank, which we already know is going to take us to a new tab. Let's answer some questions. I'm behind on the reading, admittedly, but if it's going to get covered, you can just say so. How do we link a section within? Oh, how do we link to a section within our website or document? Do we reference the ID? This is a great question. I don't know if we're going to cover it soon, but we can just check it out. So what Matthew is referring to here, I'm just going to leave this comment up because it's really good. Gosh, do we have any IDs here in our website? I don't think we do we? Here, I'm just going to look this up real quick. Oh, folks, I'm going to be cheesy. I'm sorry. I'm just going to link to my website because I know I do it there. So this is my website. We're just going to not let me promote myself. Let me just go to my CV. Going to make it a little larger. So, now I believe if I go, where is my developer tools? Now I believe Yes, yes, see? Okay, so this section of my website, which is my formal experience, has the ID experience, right? And if I ever want to link anybody to my CV directly to my experience, what I can do here, I don't know if you can see it, but if you add, and we've already got the answer here, you can use the hashtag experience. So if you go to, for example, I don't know if you can read it here, but I'll read it out loud. carmenh.dev/CV hashtag experience. And check it out. I'm going to hit enter. And that links directly to my experience. So yeah, you can totally link to any ID on your website and it'll scroll down automatically to it. Great question. Thank you. Now let's stop shamelessly promoting me. Thank you. So Mel's asking, if the parent isn't an iframe, wait. If the parent isn't an iframe, is the parent element converted to an iframe in order to display the page? Let me read it again. If the parent isn't an iframe, is the parent element converted to an iframe in order to display the page? I don't think so. If the parent element, no, well, it's not an element, is it? It's the browsing context, the viewport, right? So the parent isn't the parent element, sorry, let me try that again. The parent of an iframe is not an element. It's a browsing context, right? So even though the iframe is inside an element, that is still its own self-contained browsing context. Those are two different things. So no, it wouldn't be converted. It would just open the link in that browsing context. I hope that answers the question. This is only for one-page websites, right? No, not necessarily. Well, I mean, it would link to the ID of that specific website. Okay, folks, I'm sorry. I've been all over the place. Let's do some Q&A. So there is a fifth value called unfenced top. And I'm going to be honest with all of you. I have never heard of it before today. So all we need to know for this lesson is that we don't need to use it. We don't need to worry about it because it is currently used for the experimental fenced frame API. No idea what the fenced frame API is. I don't know if it's new. I don't know if it's old. But a good lesson to take away from this, if I may, is we don't need to know what everything is. Sure, it's fun to be curious, but it's okay. It's okay not to if we're told, like, really don't worry about it. So, that said, how many target values are there to choose from? And in the meantime, let's answer. Is each tab also a context? So we could link to another tab and open there. I don't know if you could target a specific tab, but you can target so that you open a new tab. So people are saying 4. We'll go with that. Thank you very much. Next one. Where will a link with target blank open? A new window or tab, in the same window or tab, on your second monitor, on Camperchin's computer. Don't know what Camperchin is. If y'all do, let me know. But yeah, so where does target blank open? People are saying number 1. That's correct. And next we've got, what is the default behavior when you do not set a target? Opens in a new window or tab, opens in the parent context, opens in the same window or tab, or does not open. And people are saying number 3. So let's check our answers. And they're correct. Thank you all. Pat on the back, because we want to congratulate ourselves for doing well. And we'll move on to the next one, which is absolute and relative paths. I'm going to close these tabs that I opened because I am messy. And if you were with me, I think it was on Monday, we were talking about absolute and relative paths when we were talking about like linking to files on our computer. And essentially, when we talk about paths, what we're talking about is the location of a file or a folder, right? If you're working on Windows, they're going to look a little bit different from other computers, but we'll take a look at that when we get to it. But yeah, essentially, it's telling, for example, when we're telling our website to display an image using the source, that source contains a path. Usually, that source, we've seen so far that we've been using external paths to other locations. So if we want that FreeCodeCamp image, we go to https.com/freecodecamp. I don't know what the location is. That's called an absolute path, right? But if the path is in the same folder, or it's in the same folder structure as our HTML, then we can use what's called a relative path. And what we're going to be doing in this lesson is seeing the advantages and disadvantages about the two. So first, let's look at an absolute path here. And the main thing we're going to be able to see, the main way we're going to be able to see that it's an absolute path is that it begins with a /. And that / tells us start at the root. Now you might be wondering, what is the root? The root is the absolute top level of our file system, right? So if you've ever, looked at an absolute path on macOS or Linux, you're going to see something like users, then the name of the user, and you see each / denotes the name of a folder. Each / denotes this is a folder and we're looking inside of it, right? So if we have, for example, on my computer, on the desktop, a photo of a cat called cat.jpg, I'm going to go to /users/carmenage/desktop/cat.jpg, right? But if that cat.jpg is on the desktop and so is my index.html, instead of saying /user/carmenage/desktop/cat.jpg, I can just write cat.jpg. But there's other ways to do it too, which we'll look at. So yeah, that's an absolute path. Absolute paths on Windows usually start with C://users/ I don't really know Windows all that well. I haven't used it in many years. But yeah, that's where we keep our, in this case, HTML file. Here, we have something called an absolute URL, which is what I was referring to earlier about where files are kept. By the way, just a little fun fact stuff. Can anybody tell me the difference between HTTP and HTTPS? While I wait for you all to answer that, there's also something called file. Now, file is usually telling our HTML that it's a file located on our computer. You're not going to see a whole lot of file : / honestly. And we got an answer here. HTTPS is secure. Oh yeah, one is secure and one isn't. Y'all are right. But can I be annoying and ask, does anybody know how it's secure? HTTPS adds another layer of security in a handshake. Cool. What does that mean? I'm being annoying. in this example, the protocol is HTTPS. The design style, and the file is the SVG. So yeah, we're saying, hey, go to HTTPS. Then inside the designstyleguide.freecodecamp.org, what's it called? Domain. In the image folder, look for FCC secondary small.svg. Ooh, okay. So, okay, cool. We got certificates, an encryption layer. It means it confirms things before transmitting. Certificates that add encryption layers due to protocols. That's a lot of words, huh? I'm teasing. And there are SSL, sometimes certs. When a connection is opened between server and user, they exchange keys to a secret language, a bit like we did at school. I love this. Yeah. So when you're connecting to a website via HTTP, what you're doing with your browser is... Wait, what are protocols? I'm sorry. We'll get to that in a sec. So when you're connecting to a website via HTTP, you're saying, hey, give me my HTML, JavaScript, and CSS, right? The server is giving you that stuff. However, what hackers were doing many years ago was doing something called intercepting that connection and saying like, no, don't listen to them. I'm the real CarmenH.dev. Here's your HTTP, HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. That was, like Matthew says here, I am who I say I am. That's what HTTPS does essentially. It's saying, hey, I have a secret password that's mine and mine alone, and I have a public password that I can use my secret password to tell you, yo, I'm really who I am, I promise. And protocols in this context are how we exchange those passwords. Thank you all for indulging me. I'm going to be straightforwardly honest. I am not going to quiz you on what HTTPS is. However, it's good to know, like, have a fundamental idea of what HTTPS does. And I think the highest level, I think the highest level way to identify that is to say like, cool, it's so that servers can really verify they are who they say they are. Good news, a lot of this is automatic. So for example, if you put up your website on GitHub Pages, which we talked about last week, GitHub will take care of that for you. Ooh, Eduardo's making a good point. And it's not only authentication. Requests and data are encrypted too, and that is entirely correct. Any connection that goes between the browser or an application and that server is encrypted. Thank you for indulging me, everyone. But yeah, we were talking about the file protocol here. Same thing, living locally on your computer. Now let's look at relative paths, and what you're going to notice is that there's no /, right? It doesn't start with a /. This is because it's saying it's in the same folder as, it's in the same folder as your HTML file. So let's say we're writing an index.html. About.html we're saying is in the same folder, which is handy to have. And we're going to see there's another way to do that. Mel saying, doesn't the browser do a lot of the heavy lifting for you with protocols? Yes, but I'm talking about where we host our website, the server, which again, GitHub takes care of for us. So let's do some quizzing. What are our two types of paths? We've got resolute and absolute path, absolute and ultimate paths, relative and unique paths, and absolute and relative paths. And people are saying it's number 4, which is correct. How do you link to a resource available only on the internet? Absolute URL, absolute path, relative path, both relative and absolute paths. Oh, Daniel, this is such a good way to put it. The relative path is the location of the file in relation to the current working directory. Correct. Love it. Here's a challenge. How do we explain what a relative path is without using the word relative? That's not so much a bad website question, but more of a English question. And people are saying number 1, very correct. Which protocol is used for an absolute URL on a local machine? We've got HTTP, which we know is not secure, HTTPS, file, and localhost. Oh, I like what people are saying here. Relative is connected to. If something is relative, it's connected. What room am I in? How do I get to another room from where I am? Yeah, I dig it. Cool. People are saying it's number 3 file. Cool. Let's check our answer. And that's correct. Pat, pat. Ooh, in reference to. I like it. Cool. We will do. Okay, but related to is still relative. I'm being cheesy. Ooh, I'm being annoying. Don't mind me. So now we're going to talk about the difference between slashes, a single dot, and a double dot. And I love that we're going to talk about this because we're going to see it a lot when working with files in web development. So given it, when we see a path that starts with a /, we know right away, if it starts with a /, it's an absolute path. But you might have seen // or //. And these are two different things. So let's start with just a single dot. The dots always confuse me. Same here. So one dot means this current folder, the folder we're in. So it's the same as leaving ./out. Now you might be wondering, why does this exist? It's for completeness' sake. Because you're not always going to be able to type to not have the ./. So Mel's asking, if I use image example PNG and it still works, can leaving the ./ cause issues for people visiting my website? My opinion, no. If you want my suggestion, I like to be consistent. So I always use ./. It's good to be complete, in my opinion. I like to be verbose. And double dot, like Matthew said, means one level up. Now, what does one level up mean? It means the folder outside of the folder we're currently in, or the parent folder. So if I have a folder on the desktop called images, then if I go to images, if I'm inside the folder images, .. refers to desktop. Eduardo, I believe ./ is easier for human readability. I agree. So what about the /? Because some of y'all are thinking, wait, but I always see \. What is /? The explanation is Windows. So both Mac OS and Linux are similar in that so Mac OS is based on something called Unix, and Unix and Linux have a lot of similarities, particularly in how they define paths. Mel's writing, I like Bash nicer than PowerShell. Unfortunately, I'm teaching and I don't think it's a good idea for me to give my opinions on PowerShell. I'm being silly. Anyway, Windows uses backslashes to denote folders. So Linux and Mac, / Windows /. That's the biggest difference. However, if you're making a website on Windows, the browser still uses the /. This is important. So when you're making websites on Windows, still use the / because browsers are just like, okay, Windows, whatever, I'm going to use /. Okay? So when in doubt, /. If you're writing scripts for Windows, I guess you have to use a /, but we'll stick to /. I think we can pretty much skip all of that and go straight to the questions. So, which option is an absolute path? Of these four, we've got /public style CSS, /script.js, /source nav HTML, and https freecodecamp.org. And people in the chat are saying number 1, which in my opinion is correct. Thank you. And which option is a relative path to the current directory? Current directory is the key one here. So the current directory is where our HTML file is located. So same thing, /public, /script, /source, and https. People are saying number 2. Thank you very much. And which option is a relative path to the parent directory? That is, and parent in this case means the folder that we are, no, let me try this again. The folder that contains the folder we're currently in. That is, when we go one folder outside, that's the parent. So /public, /, /, or https. It can get a bit confusing, but when I was younger and I used to play games on my dad's DOS computer, I was very used to CD ... or CD games and stuff like that. Oh, cool. So people are saying number 3. Thank you very much. And that is indeed correct. So relative path to the parent directory is the ... I will submit this and it should be correct, I hope. Yes! Pat. Well done, everybody. Mel's got such a good question. Can you use something like squiggle or tilde /index.html to jump to the root in HTML links? This is fun fact. The tilde is for Mac and Linux, and it's not the root. It's the home folder. So the tilde is the same as /users /Carmen H. I highly recommend never to link to the tilde in HTML websites because for every server that you're on, the tilde is a different thing. So no, never use the tilde. That's more of a terminal thing. Great question, though. Thank you. Okay, so we've done our reading. No, we haven't. We still have the links. The link states, pardon me. One more. Cool. Oh, does that mean if you did use tilde, you could end up taking control of the server? In the 90s and 2000s, sure. But we've tightened security on our computers and servers so that this doesn't happen anymore. And which is why I recommend if you're gonna like host your own Linux and stuff, know what you're doing. But yeah, I remember back when I started university, we had a little course where they gave us a little Linux, something called a virtual machine. We're not going to talk about that today. That they would give us little exercises for hacking into, and one of those was to like navigate outside of the folder. It was fun. Anyway, link states. So every HTML element actually has a state, right? And by default, a lot of HTML elements don't have a state, but links do. And the first one, most important one, and the one you're going to forget exists is link. And in HTML, a link has a link has the state of link when it has never been clicked. You will, if your website is not styled, if it doesn't have CSS to control how links look, it's going to look like this, blue and underlined. This says to the browser, hey, this link has never been opened before. That is the state of link. The state of link sounds like something esoteric. But yeah, no, essentially it means this link has never been opened before. That's when it's blue. If it's been clicked on, do we have it here? Yes. If it's been clicked on, check this out. Let's come back. It turns purple. And you've probably seen this a bunch when browsing the web. Purple means it no longer has the state of link, but the state of visited. And you're noticing there's a colon in front of it. This colon is the state. Now, you don't need to worry about it too much in HTML, but when we get to CSS, you're going to be styling for specific states of a link. And we'll mess around with it here. So let's take a look at this example here. We're referring to our style CSS file here in the editor, but more importantly, we've got a link here to FreeCodeCamp. So let's briefly, bear with me, briefly take a look at the style for this CSS file. Sorry, it's starting to rain, and I'm excited. So for any link that has the state visited, it's going to set the text color to brown. Let's give it a try. I'm going to click on it, come back here, and now the state is brown. And I can make this whatever we want. Let's go with aquamarine. Click on it again, come back. It's still brown because I need to refresh, I think. Sometimes it's a little finicky. Style. Aquamarine. Visit FreeCodeCamp, come back. Aquamarine. It's almost illegible. Don't put aquamarine text on a white background. That's poor accessibility. Mel's asking, how does the browser know you visited a link or not? Is it saved on the anchor or does the page read your cookies? Mel, this is such a good question that I have never in my life wondered. Oh, see, this is what I love about teaching and like learning stuff for the first time. Let's look it up. How does the browser remember? Matthew's saying on-click JavaScript, I believe. I doubt it. It's a good thought, but no, because the developer isn't setting the state, the browser is. So I think it's built into the browser, but like, how does it remember? How does the browser remember links have been visited? And Jacob Scrackers is saying, I think it just keeps a record in memory or something. I mean, sure, but how? The browser history, of course. When a user clicks a link, a browser applies a specific CSS style. Browser remembers which link have been visited by maintaining a history of URLs that user access. The browser history. See, look at us overcomplicating this with APIs and stuff. Oh, the browser reads the CSS or inline CSS that is written in the page code. Both. Does that make sense? Sometimes I go to a page I've never been on before and there are purple links. So cookies? No, not cookies. If you're wondering what cookies are specific pieces of data that get stored into your browser for a website, right? But the browser history, I mean, if you go to your browser, what is it? On Vivaldi, it is tools history. The browser history is a database of every website you've ever visited. So it's probably checking that as opposed to cookies. So browser combined with page code. Yeah, most likely. The way it remembers. But by default, which is the important part here, by default, the browser checks the browser history. Let's put it this way. Which websites have been visited is generally not under our control. I hope that makes sense. So yeah, that's the visited state. The third one is hover. And by the way, this works on anything, huh? We'll play around with it in a second. So here we're saying if we hover over this link, it will turn red, which it does. And if I want to turn it violet, like my middle name is Violeta. It should turn violet. Love it. It's also my favorite color. Anyway, this works for any element. Check this out. Let's write an H1 here. Bad website club. I'm not feeling super imaginative today. H1, hover. And given that this is CSS, and we're going to learn more about this later, we can change not just the color, but also like, I think it's font size. And we can make it 5 pixels. So when you hover on this H1, it becomes very, very small. There it is. There you see. Bad website club, but tiny. So yeah, you can do that, but that's more of an CSS thing. Answer some questions here. So if we clear the browser history, then does the state of the link change from visited to something else? Yes. And we already know from this lesson what it changes back to. It changes back to the state of link, a link that has never been visited before. So code is instructions on how a user interacts with the site, and the browser history memorizes all of the actions. Cookies are for retaining information, metadata, user stats, etc. Yeah, kinda. That's actually pretty right. Code is, with JavaScript code, we can say how we interact with it. And whenever we open a browser URL, it gets stored in our browser history. And cookies are used by folks who want to track user data. Like, I don't know how many times you visited the website, or, I mean, the most classical use for cookies is remembering what is in your shopping cart from back in the day. Yeah. So that's the hover state. Then we have focus. The state applies when we focus on the link. So what's the difference between focus and hover? So when we focus on this link, it'll turn green. But you see, when I hover on it, nothing happens. However, focusing is something we do quite often, but don't really think about. If we're navigating websites with a keyboard, however, we do think more about focus. So, oh, please let this work. Ugh. One way to do it is to click on it. You can also press tab on your keyboard to select it. For example, when you're filling out a form on a website, which we'll learn about in a week or two. Let me try that again, which we'll learn about in a week or two. Sorry. So when you're filling out a form on a website, you've got these inputs, which we're going to learn about, and you can press tab to move to the next input. That's called focusing it, and that's how you set the state. Same goes for active, as Mel said. You can see active if you hold down your mouse button on a link. So let's take a look here. So if the link is active, it'll turn black. Clicking and not letting go. Yes. Bad case of CRS there. What is CRS? No idea. I've always been bad at, what's the term? Abbreviations. But yeah, those are the 5 states that we have for links. And we're going to learn when we do CSS that there's tons of other states we can have. Can't remember stuff. I see. I would call it bad case. A mnemonic to remember link states is love, fears, hate. That is so cute. Thank you, Edda. So yeah, let's go over these again. So what is the default state of a link? We've got link, visited, hover, and active. So if we go through these in reverse order, active is when it's being directly engaged with or clicked on. Hover is used when we put our mouse on top of the link, and visited is when we've already clicked on it before. So as Mel correctly says, it's a link. Thank you very much. Which state applies while a user is clicking on the link? Now remember, not necessarily when it's been clicked and let go of, but rather specifically while we're holding it down. Mel is saying you could style all 4 states to be the same. My question to that is, why? Yeah, people are saying 4. That's correct. Ooh, in which order should you style your links? So there's visited, link, active, and hover. Link, active, hover, and visited. Hover, active, link, and visited. And link, visited, hover, active. I said a bunch of words, but very, very tricky to process them. But yeah, so what is the order in which we should style our links? And people are saying number 4, that's correct. So we style link, then visited, then hover, then active. What a great question. Why do links have to be styled in that particular order? Now, it's kind of related to what Mel was joking about. So to be mean to the user, you could style the links to look like normal text. So users have to hover over each word to see cursor change. Fun game. So the reason links have to be styled in that particular order, it's going to sound weird, but it's sort of like it's kind of like a styling convenience. Let me give you an example. Let's pretend for a second. So we're going to write some CSS right now. is color black, and I think it's underline. No, is it text underline? Oh gosh, why am I writing? Why text? Does anybody remember how to take away the underline? Is it text style? Ugh. MDN. We're going to MDN. Decorate. Thank you, thank you, thank you, lovelies. You're all the best. Text. Decoration. None. Perfect. So this link now just looks like text, as Mel was joking about earlier, right? Thank you all. So yeah, this link, no decoration at all. However, we know that links should be colored blue and should have the text text decoration underline. Now it looks like a link again. Thank goodness for that. But text hover, we want the color to be magenta. Check it out. So the link is always a link, but when it's hovered, then it should be magenta. This is why we style it in this order, because the CSS interpreter or the browser reads it in order. First, it's like, okay, if it's a link, I'm always going to underline it. This is the C in CSS, cascading, right? It's easier if you speak Spanish because cascada means waterfall, right? It cascades. The styles cascade into one another. So I know this is an annoying answer to your question because it's a really good question. But so the reason they have to be styled in that particular order is, oh, cascade does also mean waterfall. Thank you. Second language problem. It's my second language, sorry. Where was I? I'm sorry, folks. My brain just reset. In order for the CSS to cascade from link to hover, we have to decorate them in that order. I hope that makes sense. So that's why we style them in that order. Oopsie. What if you define each style with color and text decoration, including the hover? Now, do you mean that they would be a different one? Let's take a look. So what is it? Who was talking about? Mel was talking about, I like to make links bold. Yeah, sure. Let's do it. Font weight bold. So, oh, and text decoration. I actually don't know what other text decorations there are. Text decoration. What other text decorations are there? Overlines? Really? Well, I'll be darned. But Mel makes a good point. It wouldn't matter about order if they all have each thing defined on every state. Sure. But what are we doing? Because how annoying would it be to have to write text decoration underline for every single state when we could have the convenience of the cascade? That is the point of doing them in order. Strike through, really? Strike through. Oh, maybe? Text decoration. Sorry, you know what? I get way too easily entertained playing around with CSS. I really love CSS. Strike. Oh, that's too bad. I couldn't find it on MDN. Anyway, we are running out of time. I'm sorry, folks. I get too easily entertained. Looks good. Is our answer good? Yep. Pat. And I think that ends our lesson. If you haven't yet, take a look at the basic HTML review, which is going to cover everything that we've learned in the last 8 lessons. Can you believe it's been 8 lessons? Gosh. Do feel free to ask me any last questions before we go, by the way. Yeah, so take a look at that. It's going to cover everything we've done, as said, in the last 8 days, including what we've done today, link states and all that. And complete the basic HTML quiz, which I believe is a requirement to complete the certification for Free Code Camp. Tomorrow, we'll be back with Jess, who's going to talk to us about semantic HTML. I love semantic HTML. Oh, Jacob Scracker says, I still don't understand. Will we cover it when we learn CSS? We should, but can you elaborate what you mean when you say you don't understand? What do you not understand? Hello, saying apparently it's line through. Okay, we'll stay a little bit longer, but yes, semantic HTML, why we should care. Why is it important to have structural hierarchy? What is the difference between presentational and semantic HTML? When we should use the emphasis element, the strong element, and what are description lists? That's a lot of homework, folks. Just in case it needs to be said, don't get overwhelmed, please. We also use these lessons to cover this stuff. So let's go easy on ourselves, please. Line through, huh? Let's go back. Line dash through. So hover. Oh. What does semantic mean in programming? It should mean the same as in English. So semantic is logical following, right? So semantic, for example, in programming means the logic of how a series of instructions is followed, right? Even though the syntax is correct, right? Let's say, maybe it's without the hyphen. We'll get to that in a sec. Maybe we have some code that says 1 plus 1, that adds 2 numbers together, but in the code, it subtracts them, right? It does minus, right? Syntactically, look at me being fancy, that code might be correct, but semantically, it's wrong because it's supposed to add those 2 numbers. As Jacob Scracker says, semantic in English means related to meaning. We can't escape the relative, huh? But yes, that is entirely correct. So semantic HTML means the code explains itself. The elements explain what they do. Sorry, I think I was a bit distracted when you did the explaining. Totally fine. That's what the recording's for. Speaking of which, I should wrap up this lesson. I'm having too much fun playing around with CSS. I really love CSS. So logic errors and bugs. Correct. The code might run, but it is not correct. Sure, let's try it here. Text decoration line through. Oh, there it is. Why didn't it work before? There it is. Yay. Thank you so much. Folks, let's wrap it up for today. Thank you all so much for your questions. I really enjoy doing this with y'all. I hope you have a most wonderful rest of your day. I'm going to go collapse and rest until the next time we see each other. So all the best with your learning. Happy coding, and see you tomorrow. Bye for now.